Hey, what's happening? Ben Standig here with my boy JP Finlay from CSN Washington.
What up?
How are we? We're talking, we were always talking college basketball. I think we're going to squeeze in some Wizards also because I don't know in case you haven't noticed the college basketball season's actually kind of over.
That means the Wizard season isn't over.
It's almost over. We got about 10 seconds left.
Trying to get to the finish line.
I figured out after tomorrow's game, I will be at 40 41 home games.
Wow. How many other people outside of Randy Whitman? Who else can say that?
I don't know, but nobody's saying it.
Well, what did Michael Lee go to? I know he took one night off and won. That was a big thing.
Actually, I said something to him yesterday. He said he went to, including the road games, he went to like 75 of the. He'll gone to like 75 of the 82.
Okay.
I mean, because he pretty much does all the road.
Right. Sure.
But yeah, so that's a whole other scenario. I'll get my head examined for the offseason.
Yeah. Interesting.
All right, so we're gonna get to the Wizards, but I said we put a bow in the college world. We always tend to talk about Georgetown here because between myself and Bobby, who we typically have on, we're doing that beat. You typically do Maryland. I say
I'm College Park guy. You fancy Georgetown crowd.
I went to UMBC. I qualify as neither fancy nor anything. Let's talk about Maryland. Some interesting stuff this week. Keyshawn Howard leaves the program. I'm of two minds of this. On the one hand, it hurts depth. He's the most experienced ball handler that they had going into senior year. But on the other hand, God, he drove me crazy watching him play. He wasn't really a point guard. It felt like it was just sort of he was thrust into that role because they didn't have anybody else. But maybe they will starting next year.
Sure. It's tough because if you ask that question, do you think Keyshawn will be here next year in like February? I think a lot of folks would have said no. He got suspended for a game. He had to caught some more injury stuff. His minutes were really limited down the stretch. But then it was like him and Turgeon came to some agreement or whatever, and he started playing again. And then you can't really call it a postseason run because it was the NIT and the ACC tournament. But he played some great minutes in both of those. When Maryland probably looked their best than they did all year, especially that Duke game. Real good facilitator. He played great on the ball defense, especially there at the end. So, am I shocked that he's leaving still? No. He's an LA guy. He's from California. His grandmother's sick. So there's that. Even without that, I still wouldn't be shocked. I was a lot more surprised than I would have been in, January or February. The question now is like where it leaves them at the point. I mean, because the point was a weakness for the Terps with him, and not taking any shots at anybody, but they had trouble setting up their offense, running their offense. Turnovers were a problem. I know we'll get to Alex Len, but getting the ball into the post at times was a problem. So point guard was never a strength, and now they're down what would be a senior 4-year player. So sure, I mean, looking at that in a vacuum, it hurts the team.
I think the one thing that's interesting is that, it's okay, short term for this year, it sort of hurts the team, but I kind of feel that with Turgeon, sort of when Terrell Stoglin left the program, that it was Turgeon's. It's always that line of who decided the person was going to leave, the coach, the player. But on some level, it was for Turgeon to start to get his program going in a certain direction he wants. That move had to happen because Stoglin was too much of a dominated the ball too much. Yeah. I don't necessarily know if this is the full blown to that category, but you got Seth Allen, who Turgeon likes, but he's also kind of a combo guard, not really right. But they're bringing in this kid Roddy Peters, supposedly more of a point guard, and obviously he was a big time recruit at Georgetown and some other schools. So maybe it's like, okay, he's got these two young guys who wants to start really get going. The only thing is, it's entering year 3 of the Turgeon era. I'm not saying anybody's remotely calling for his head, but they really can't afford another year without the postseason or the NCAA tournament. Yeah. So it's sort of interesting that however it came to be, I suspect Turgeon's not disappointed or he's not upset that this occurred. At the same time, to have your backcourt now being run by a sophomore and a freshman is gotta be a scary thing.
Well, especially because he's a point guard, at heart. I mean, he played point at Kansas. He's clearly a guard. He's not the biggest guy. But there's a couple things that I find interesting is I don't think we've seen the end of Nick Faust playing point for the Terps. I know that plenty of fans will say that he shouldn't be there, and clearly late in the season.
I will say that.
Right, but I think you're still going to see some of that. I was intrigued and thought it worked out when they had Dez as kind of a change of pace option playing point, and you'd see that a lot late in games, kind of as like a closer role to get to the rim and maybe free throws. There's a lot of pressure on Roddy Peters coming in. He's a local guy. He's from Suitland, right down the road. And what's interesting there is he's been hurt. I mean, he hasn't played. He had surgery. I'm pretty sure it was his shoulder. So not only are you relying on what will be a sophomore in Seth Allen, who likes to shoot. I mean, he can play the point, but he's not the best ball handler, and he's not the best facilitator of the offense. He's a good player, but not necessarily, certainly not a pure point. And then a freshman who didn't play his senior year in high school. I'm sure he'll get some AAU work in. I'm sure he'll be in College Park as soon as possible playing with those guys. But I don't know. It's a lot of questions. I wouldn't be surprised if you see one of these fifth-year transfer guys that they come in as a graduate player, like Logan Aaronholt filled that role last season. I wouldn't be surprised by that.
You know what? It's sort of a veer off topic. You said there's a lot of pressure on Roddy Peters coming in as a freshman. Now, he's not a top 10 national prospect. He's considered a good prospect, but I don't think he's a program.
I think he's like a top 50, certainly a top 100.
Right. I had somebody tell me sort of, who knows, but maybe it's sour grapes, but like he hadn't gone to a bigger school like Maryland, but maybe we wouldn't be talking to high school, but whatever. But the fact that the way that college is these days, is guys keep leaving, and then you have to have this constant turnover where these young guys have to play immediately, whereas, not to sound like an old man, but back in the day, freshmen would not have to come in and play immediately.
Sure. And
you could learn how to play. And it feels like that's one of the problems. College basketball, to me, it was definitely a down year, no matter what happened in the Final Four. It was a positive. But because these guys have to come in, again, sort of off topic, but it's just a constant, it's a never-ending cycle, I guess, and that's kind of how it's going to be, I guess, until, I don't know, people figure out a way to, not that Maryland's been affected that much by the NBA draft.
Right. But they're losing guys, but it's not like they're going pro. Right. Or they're not going pro in America.
Right, exactly. You mentioned Alex Lund before. I suspect we all think he's not coming back. I would be stunned at this point if he is. He's a projected top 8, top 10 pick at least. I'm not saying that Ukrainians don't value education, but he's not, he's from another country. There may be other pressure.
Right.
Whatever it is, I suspect we think he's going to leave. In terms of Maryland, it's hard to say that would help them. But on the other hand, they do have a lot of young, big guys. Could it possibly be something that would actually benefit the team because maybe it would change the way the team goes about things?
I've heard this idea kicked about, and I in no way see how it helps to lose an athletic 7-footer. I mean, I think a lot of fans are resigned to the fact that Glenn will leave, and in turn they're trying to talk themselves into, this will actually work out better. I'm not buying that. I think the team can be better next season, but I think they'll be a better team, hopefully with or without Alex. I think they'd be better with him, certainly. I think he is inconsistent. That's been shown certainly this past season with the games he throws up against Sterling's Knoll, Kentucky, and then Plumlee on Duke, but then he just disappears against a 6'7" guy on Boston College. I mean, it's tough as a fan to watch that, and then as somebody who knows a bit about hoops, you just wonder what's going on there. So no, they won't. It's not better to not have Alex Len. I don't think. But I do think you got Shaq Clear, you got Charles Mitchell. They both showed some great flashes. But you want to talk about inconsistent? I mean, those guys were. You did not know what you were getting one game to the next.
As somebody who didn't watch Maryland as much as I historically have because I was doing other stuff, but from the outside, the one thing that always struck me was, God, Turgeon's changing the lineup again, and there's not like an injury. It sort of drove me crazy. But what was sort of said to me was, it's not that he really wanted to, but because like the inconsistency factor, it was like every game going, okay, I don't know who to start today. Let's try this.
Yeah,
is that kind of what you thought?
You never know. You never knew who was going to show up. And weirdly, I don't have stats in front of me or anything, but a buddy of mine, his father told me this, and it proved very true. Charles Mitchell, as a starter, rarely had a good game. Coming off the bench, he could deliver almost every game. I mean, and deliver, I'm saying, close to 10 points and 7, 8 points. I think both those guys have a really high ceiling. Maybe not vertically. Neither of them are like going to jump out of the gym, but Charles Mitchell on the offensive glass is a presence. I think Shaq Clear's offensive game will come in. They also have, there's going to be 2 more interesting big guys next season. They have this kid, DeMonte Dodd, who's from the Eastern Shore. Right. This super raw recruit that they found him. He's gone and done a year at Hargrave, prep year, and it depends what you're reading and how much you listen to his coaches talking about him, but people think he could have a real upside. He's another big body. And then the kid, Smatras, is the Michigan transfer, and by all accounts, he's more of a shooter, but he's still a big body that you're going to have to defend, and that'll create some matchup problems. So I think they could have.
And they still have Jake Layman also.
Yeah, and as Layman gets better, I mean, he's 6'8". He's not an interior body, but he can really do some things that they haven't had somebody in that role that big.
Plus, it's tremendous.
Right.
There's no denying that the importance of it.
I've heard that the ladies love Jake Layman.
College Park. I would assume he's doing fine.
Right.
By the way, what do you think of our lighting?
Yeah,
it'll
be
be
like Darth Vader.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this looks later.
Should I scoot up? I don't know.
It's the room we're in. There's nothing we can do about it. All right, we'll come back to Alex Leonard in a second. So, as I said, we always talk about Georgetown. I believe I did a show a couple days, or maybe like a day after they lost to Florida Gulf Coast, and that was just not fun. And it's been a few weeks to let that digest. I'm trying to put something together on TSN Washington, sort of, as other people have done, what the team needs to do to fix their problems. And, I go down some of the same areas that other people do and maybe try to veer off on others. But as somebody who, was sort of the opposite of Ryan, was in Maryland, caught some games, we're doing 22 games as well. From an outside perspective, but you had to you could talk to JG3 and say, look, if I were you, I would change X, Y, or Z. What recommendations do you make? Because, by losing, it's a weird scenario. I mean, they have all this irregular season success, right, and they lose to a double-digit seed 5 of the last 6 times. Right. So one of these things that doesn't seem to make sense, what would you recommend to somebody?
That Georgetown situation is bizarre because, clearly there's talent. There's guys going to pros. There's guys going to the pros. The elite level of talent is there. But there's also clearly a problem. They're losing to teams. Everybody wants to bring up the freak coincidences of the teams they're losing to, but it keeps happening. It's 6 years in a row now, and I know there was Steph Curry in there, and this Florida Gulf Coast team was really good, and crazy things happened, but I don't know. I don't think JT3 wants to know what I would recommend, and I'm not the first person to suggest this, but you gotta wonder if that slow it down offensive pace they're going for in the tournament costs them, because the teams that they're losing to, certainly Florida Gulf Coast was running up and down, and it seemed like they had better legs than Georgetown. And granted, the Hoyas cut it close at the end, but that's because they were finally able to put in their style of play. So you wonder if maybe they open it up a bit early. They can, I swear if they just get past these early first weekend at least flameouts, then they can go on a run. But when you match up with a team that you've never played, and they're pretty used to that Big East slog by the time they get to the tournament. And there's clearly Louisville's a great team, Syracuse is a great team, but there's some Big East teams that aren't the best shooters. They just want to play super physical and hit the glass, and it's a slow physical pace. And when you get into the tournament and you've got different refs and they're calling all these little touch fouls that don't get called in Big East play, you see the results for some, or you certainly see them for Georgetown. I don't know what the answer is.
We'll keep talking about that in a second. Real life is interrupted here for a second. If you want to go see what that was, I'm happy to.
Yeah.
But I'll be right back because I can't debate for too long. All right, so obviously he makes a lot of points that other people have made about the offense. I'll move over here for a second. The one point that I kind of think that people sort of miss on, they talk about Georgetown wanting to run a slow offense. I don't necessarily think that is what the issue is. You look at recent success for the past few years, the teams that Georgetown has struggled against typically have been the teams that want to slow the game down. They get destroyed by Pittsburgh every single time they play, basically. When West Virginia was in the Big East, that was a team that always gave Georgetown fits. At the same time, Louisville, a team that wants to push it, Georgetown has won 4 straight times. Peyton Siva will finish his college career winning a national title, but never having beaten Georgetown. So I don't necessarily think that the issue is that they can't go up tempo. I think the problem that I sort of see is they don't dictate what the game is going to be. A standard quote from JT3 is something along the lines of, we don't care if we get a good shot within the first 3 seconds or the last 3 seconds. We just want to get a good shot. And that is a fine approach in sort of an idealistic kind of a world, but at the same point, it's not dictating terms to the team. You play Wisconsin slows the ball. Good. You play Louisville, they have to go up tempo. Saying that I think the thing with Georgetown, it's not that they want to play slow, it's that they're willing to play slow, but they'll do whatever the other team wants to do.
What was the score in that Georgetown-Tennessee game?
37-36.
At halftime.
Yeah, exactly. They could make a cut. But like I'm saying, they've beaten Louisville 4 straight times. Peyton Siva finished his college career national champion and never having beaten Georgetown. And we all think Louisville wants to run, whereas Pittsburgh, West Virginia teams that typically want to slow always give Georgetown problems. My take is they don't dictate the terms of the game. They allow the terms to be dictated to them. They think they can do well, and that's fine. But I think then when you get to sort of the way it ties in with the tournament, because they're not dictating terms and they're allowing the game to sort of, they're figuring out how the game's going to go. Right? They start getting behind on the emotion angle against these underdog teams in neutral settings.
Yeah.
The random people are going to start going for the underdog. The underdog gains confidence. We all know how that works in sports. Sometimes once that underdog gets some confidence, it doesn't matter who's seated what way.
Right, and then the arena starts rooting for them, and
that's definitely what happened this time. It became crazy being in there.
Sure.
So there's a lot.
But something's happening. 6 straight years is not a freak coincidence.
No. Absolutely not. The one other thing that's sort of jumping out to me is, if you're going to run, it's one thing to recruit. This I think goes with any sport, right? If you have a style that you want to run, it's not enough just to get players. You have to get the players that work for you. I think we saw it in Maryland that, in my opinion, when the Gary Williams era, before they won the national title, I'm just saying, he beat the Bushes for the guy that he wanted. After the title, it felt like they were more going off the list of the top 100 recruits, and you've got some guys that doesn't make quite sense. Yeah, you look at the Georgetown team this year, they had no guy at the post who could run the offense through, essentially, which was a big staple of the team, of a Princeton offense. You couldn't really line the court with shooters. You had a couple of guys that could make some shots, but if you're going to have that type of offense where the ball, it's not a star system, the ball kind of lands somewhere. You need guys who can make shots. They often played 3 on 5 on offense. It feels like he maybe Lubick's presence didn't command the post. Nate Lubick should be better than he is. I don't know what it is, but exactly. So it feels like from a recruiting angle, Georgetown's constantly in a lot of high-end guys. Yeah. They also kind of missed recently a lot of high-end guys. Yeah.
Their hats on the table. Nobody's picking them up.
Yeah. They need to figure out how to forget the high end. They need to figure out get guys when they come in to do something specific that works for them.
You look at the last great team they had. I don't know that Green or Hibbert were star recruits, but they're both local guys. I feel like Porter's from Missouri, right? And Monroe before that was from Louisiana. Starks is local. Rivera's from Indiana. Yeah. I'm not saying they're losing local guys, but it's interesting to see.
No, absolutely. The weird thing is about them, just looking ahead to next year. Again, I suspect we all think Otto Porter's going to leave. He's projected top 5. It's hard to argue. Georgetown, I've seen them in preseason.
Top 5.
Chad Ford and ESPN.
Yeah,
he's top.
Good for him. Well,
yeah, exactly. I've seen to whatever extent these early preseason for next year polls are worth, which is not much. I've seen Georgetown ranked 9th. I've seen them not ranked. And the reason why I think I can accept both of those versions is because you have no idea what their team is going to look like next year. We don't know officially if Greg Whittington is coming back. Josh.
That's still academics question mark.
They just haven't said whether he is. I mean, maybe they know, but they haven't told the world.
Right.
Josh Smith, the big kid from UCLA.
Oh, the big, yeah.
Big is an operative word, but
Right.
he looks bigger than a lot of the Redskins.
Wow.
And if he needs his issue is losing weight. If he loses 30, 40 pounds, people think he's going to be a prospect. Will he? We don't know.
Right.
And then, just the general growth of the team. If those two guys are on the team and playing at a high level, they could be ranked top 25. If they don't play.
So is the UCLA kid, he sat out this year, so he'd be eligible?
Well, there was a question throughout the year because.
So we're getting into inside baseball.
But basically, there's a chance he may either not play the first semester of next year, not at all, or play all next year. Basically, it's like if he plays all next year, that might be all of his eligibility, even though he, in theory, left halfway through last year, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's like this weirdness of, we don't know how much time he has left.
Gotcha.
So anyway, they could be top 10. They
right.
could be who knows what. And factor in the new conference and what that means. It's a crazy
that new conference, I mean, outside of having the Big East name, is not, I don't know. You're getting the dregs of the Big East there. DePaul and, Seton Hall.
Providence, that doesn't move the
right.
needle for you?
I mean, I guess it did for, Dave Gavitt or whatever, but those teams are no longer what they were. I don't think Pitino's coaching the Providence.
Right. No. I mean, they're relying a lot on Butler, a lot on Xavier, a lot on Creighton. I mean, I'm joking when I say this, but like Big East needs to pay Doug McDermott to stay at Creighton because otherwise I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a decent enough team to make the tournament, and obviously had a good run, but yeah, it's definitely it's not going to have the same sex appeal.
No, but I mean, that conference relies on a whole kind of conversation. It's difficult. Yeah.
Let's veer off the Wizards and we'll get out of here. There's 3 games left in the season. There's been obviously considerable improvement from 4-28 to their 1 win away from 30 wins. They were almost on the verge.
That's crazy. 4-28, they could get to 30. That's impressive.
Yeah. Randy Whitman said yesterday, basically, if you had said to him at 4-28, you could get to 30, he'd have thought you were crazy.
Right.
So of course the question is, what does it actually mean? Did this surge come because they had no more pressure? Did the surge come because John Wall and the other pieces together truly are a team that could be a top 5 or 6 team because that's kind of how they played it with him in there? Or is it just, we've been down this road before with this franchise. It's hard to find anything because we've been fooled too many times in the past. What do you go with there?
I don't want to be the skeptic, but personally, I think there's real things you can take away from the run when Wall and Nene and Beal were on. I mean, they looked like a solid pro team. Ariza gave him some good minutes. Martell Webster's been great. Okafor has played well. I know that there was like a contract issue there. There's still plenty of questions, but do I think if they're all healthy next year that they can be a 6 or a 7 seed? Yes. What does that mean in the big picture? Not a whole lot. I mean, I remember during the Gil Antoine years, it was fun to go see playoff hoops at Verizon. I went. Soldier Boy was in the crowd. And it was goofy and it was fun. But I don't know. For me, I look back to the Okafor Ariza trade and I don't know. You wonder if they're not better off with that cap space, and then they have Wall and Beal and try to go after something else. I mean, it's done is done now. Do I think they can be a 5, 6, 7 next year? 8 certainly. Yes.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing about basketball, right? Everybody gets excited. You want to make that playoff push, considering they've been so far down now for a while. Making the playoffs sounds like an amazing thing, but in the big picture, it doesn't mean that much if you're going to get bounced by the Heat of the Knicks in the first round. And even though Wall's looked really, really good lately, and Bradley Beal's bona fide legit player, and so on. Yeah, it's hard to see them getting there. I guess you could at least say they have been playing at a level sort of like got 5 or 6 foot, and that's with Bradley Beal.
Got to learn to win on the road.
Well, yeah.
I mean, what's happened? And then, the road is a real concern because they just cannot win on the road, even games they should. But then you see last night against the Heat, and you're playing a team that is way undermanned and you should take care of at home. And and they just play up and down to the level of competition and stuff like that. If you're going to be a playoff team, you cannot do that. I mean, I feel like every NBA team, including like the Heat this season, they'll have a couple inexplicable losses. The bad teams, like the Heat to the Wizards. Exactly. But when you're the Wiz of trying to become a playoff team, trying to maybe set the tone for next season or whatever, slogan they're going to come up with, you cannot have a loss like that. And the players said it in their sound bites, but we should have blown them out or whatever. Right? That's disheartening.
It is weird because the one thing you could sort of give this team credit for Randy Whitman credit for is that even when 4-28, they were playing defense. They've been one of the top 10 defensive teams just this year. So that shows a certain amount of focus all the time, and yet it has been unreal how many games they've lost this year. It's a team where you're like, come on, really, you got to get this one done. I mean, the Wizards played without Beal. Trevor Ariza didn't play. Martell Webster left in the third quarter. The game was tight until the beginning of the fourth. So maybe at some point, even from their perspective, it's like, hey, we're undermanned, even if they're missing all their obvious guys. But yeah, I mean that's a tough one to take. Off season, they've got 6 guys who are free agents, but realistically, there's only 2 that are sort of interesting: Martell Webster, AJ Price. I kind of like Garrett Temple, but I suspect it'll be more fit for him.
Garrett Temple sweepstakes.
Kind of like the post like that in the Vegas. Slide this over here. That's right. That's right. So Martell Webster is the big one. He is a humongous locker room.
I'd really like them to bring Martell Webster back. He seems fun and nice, just like a good dude in the locker room. AJ Price, I think he's just that veteran backup point that you can find, in September. And he's played well, but nothing to write. He's filled a role that I think other players can fill.
So the thing about Webster is, I mean, his career, he was a lottery pick out of high school, and his career never took off because of injuries or whatever. This was, from what I can tell, easily his best year of his career, especially once John Wall got in there and they were able to find him rest space to go from the court and so on. But, we always get this concern about players. Are they playing for a contract and so on? I don't mean that like in a malicious kind of way, but the reality is these things happen.
Yeah.
Did you see it? Would you give him a long-term deal, whatever that means, 3 years, 2 years, or whatever it is? Or, you know what? We've got a reason. We got this first-round pick that's going to come up. Maybe I don't know if they get out of order if they're picking probably 8 or 9, but, maybe they can get him or Shabazz Muhammad or the girl or somebody.
You don't throw a lot of money in Martell Webster. I mean, they're locked in with so many big contracts as is. I think a 2-year deal for what would be reasonable? $8 million, something like that.
The numbers get a contract get thrown around so much. I don't even know.
Right. But I think if you can keep him at a place where he fits as a piece, but not one of the pieces, I think you do. But you can't get hamstrung by Martell Webster.
we all joke in the media room, although I think we're all serious. We're willing to chip in to keep him because he's so quotable. I mean, honestly, I've said this many times. As a locker room presence alone, he's probably over $1 million. He like the turnover in the locker room from the knucklehead years to now. It's night and day. He's easily the class clown in there. He keeps everybody loose. I think he's a tremendous, really, really, really smart guy. So I would like to stay, but it's going to be a question. The draft is coming up in about 2 months, but the guys are starting to declare now. It seems like you pretty much know all the guys are going to come out. I'd be stunned if any of this obvious names didn't come out. Unless they get the number 1 pick, they're probably not going to get in their own snowball. Beyond that, I don't know if anything is a lock or anything. Anybody jump out at you when you look at the Wizards' needs that you think to yourself, that's the guy they need to get?
I think it'd be cool if Porter landed there. I think he does. I think as a pro, he's going to do all the little things really well. And I think the Wiz could really use that. I also think if you can get a guy like Shabazz Muhammad, the talent that's there is crazy, and there's still a lot of room to grow. I think his ceiling is higher than Porter's. I like Oladipo, but at his size, I don't know that he fits the Wiz need. I mean, they need a 3. I think for a big man, I don't know that they need more guards.
I think I don't know depending on what they do with Webster or some other stuff, their priorities might change. But in some order, they need an athletic big man because Nene and Okafor plotting, and the other guys behind him at this point you can't count on for much. They need a small forward, especially if Webster leaves. They do need backups at both guard spots because right now
taking a backup at the 8, wherever they pick.
You know what I mean? In a normal sense, I would say, of course not. But this draft, I mean, this isn't a very tremendous draft, and I'd rather them get. I mean, a third guard is going to play 25 minutes, so you know.
But I really like Victor Oladipo. I'm not sure. Yeah, he's a fit.
I'm with you. I mean, the only thing I like him, he's a more defense, and what his deal is on the other side. So it is sort of a compliment.
Yeah, and like a really good on-ball defender too, not just roving around. But I mean, any of the big names, the kid Smart from Oklahoma State or McLemore, I don't think they're the right guys. What about, who our buddy Chase Hughes loves is Anthony Bennett at UNLV. He's been saying that, since November that he wants it, right? So,
I mean, he's very athletic, but he's Trevor Booker. He's an undersized 4. And,
well, I don't know. I don't think we should be laughing at Cody Zeller. I think,
you see my eye roll there?
I did. I mean, clearly he wasn't that impressive, but you got an Indiana guy on the bench. I think he's going to impress everybody at the combine. I think he'll knock down open jumpers, 8, 10, 12 footers. I think he's got all the measurables, whatever Jay Bill is going to be saying on draft night, wingspan and all that stuff. The way things usually break for the Wiz, it wouldn't shock me if they get lower than if they end up with the 11th pick or something. And I just weirdly could see Cody Zeller in Washington.
On a certain level, on paper, he
fits a lot of holes. Yeah.
Here's the $1 million question. The Wizards have had a track record of striking out with European players, and yet people like when you draft a local kid. So if you're sitting there at the 9th or 10th pick and Alex Len is still sitting there. Okafor only has 1 year left after this year. So hypothetically, you need a center for the future. Kevin Seraphin, I don't think you can count on him. So there's a need there, and he's local, so it's not like Vesely where we didn't see him. But at the same point,
so with Len, I think he could make it in the pros. I mean, clearly there's NBA scouts that are paid a ton of money that come. I see them at all the Maryland games. They see something there. I mean, the dude is very athletic, fast, super raw, can shoot down a jumper when he's sitting still. I think he could be a pick and roll asset in the pros. He's clearly got to put a ton of weight on. He's got to get stronger. He's got to understand spacing and positioning for rebounds. But I don't know if Alex Len is the right fit.
I think that's just a fascinating call. Because if you said you're going to draft any European player, like, oh my God, are you kidding me?
Here's what I think. Cody Zeller has a ceiling here, but a basement is only here. He's going to deliver a 10-year pro career. I think Alex Len could bottom out and be playing in the Ukraine pretty quick. Or if everything works out, he could develop into a really nice player that can hit outside shots. He's a pretty decent passer for a big guy. He could evolve into a European 5 that gives you really good things.
I think a lot probably going to depend on what they actually think of Jan Vesely. I know the whole world can't stand him and whatever, but they're the ones who see him. I watch him in practice. He makes every shot. He makes every shot he takes. It's all here and it's all here. He needs to get in the weight room and he needs to figure out how to build up his confidence.
Yeah.
His instincts are solid. He's a really good athlete. So if they think he can actually still do something for them, then maybe instead of going for an Alex Len, they take something that's more of a sure thing.
Yeah.
Whatever that may be. But yeah, I mean, if that's the scenario. Anyway, I just think that would be, I'm rooting for Porter for the local and for the on-court reason, but the Len thing I think is fascinating. And I can't imagine what people around here will think.
Well, when's the lottery? During the finals?
It's like mid to late May.
Okay. And then the draft's late June?
Yeah, 27.
It'll be interesting.
It will be. April 28th, we'll know who's in and who's out. So we got to learn. KP, I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, buddy.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Catch you guys later.
See ya.